Hello and welcome to another episode of Genealogy Quick Start. We have a great one for you today. You know what to do if you are here, whether you're watching live or in recording. Let us know you're there. Let us know where you are. And if you have a genealogy group, please put them in the comments as well, because you never know who might need to know where a genealogy group is that they're researching near where they live. Do you know that you don't necessarily have to always join a genealogy group place where you are researching? Sure, there are people like in Philadelphia, an African American genealogy group. We're researching all over the country, all over the world, actually. So get out there and join those genealogy groups. Don't get me started, because you know that I love genealogy groups. And you know what else I love? Genealogy Quick Start. So please subscribe to our newsletter. This is how you get advance notification of which episodes we are going to do. What are the cool quick starts that are coming out? Well, tonight we have two new quick starts. Yes, Jim and Michael did it again. They came up with a quick start called Church Membership Has Its Privileges. Yes, indeed, it does. This is often why people join churches, but I think they're going to go a different way, and we'll listen and see what they share. Do you have church records? Do you currently, if you are a church member, are you guys preserving records now? Yes, we should be doing that, right? And oh my gosh, we have a great special guest today, Jesse Bayker from Rutgers. And he is working on the project of a lifetime. Yes, a project of a lifetime. It's the New Jersey Slavery Database, and he's going to tell you all about it. And his quick start is very unique. He is going to share the records that gradual abolition created. Because records, laws, records, they create a law. You got to have records to follow the law. Most often, this is what's happening. And today, he's going to put that lens on abolition. So I'm very excited for our second quick start. But first, let's bring out the quick starts that everyone raves about all the time. Sometimes you guys really elevate them really high. And I get it, because they're really kind of funny and they're kind of fun. First up, my buddy, columnist and editor, James M. Bidler. How are you, Jim?
Kind of fun.
See, hysterical. You made me just crack up. Super funny, super funny. And also, you know him from Genealogy Tip of the Day, Michael John Neal.
Hey, how we doing? I thought you were going to ask me some question or have some quip, and I was waiting, and I didn't get one, so I had to make the quip, which doesn't always bode well.
How are you, Michael? It's really nice to have you here. Are you with your
I'm
grandchildren? Is this why you gave me a scare?
No, but I had to run them home earlier, and in my head today is Wednesday.
Oh no!
Oh wait,
Don't
can I say
speed it
that?
up.
Can I say that if we're supposed to
No,
be
you're not
evergreen? Can I
allowed.
mention the day of the week? Okay, sorry.
No. It is Wednesday. It's Thursday. It's Friday. It's Saturday.
It's
It's
every
Sunday, as
day.
well as Monday and
That's
Tuesday.
a metaphor for my life. True, true.
Who do we have here today? We have June Hall. June, I have no idea how you were able to put in a comment before we even went live. You taught me something new today that I did not know existed. Of course, she is from Shaker Heights, AAGS Cleveland, Dr. Debbie's group. And also from Dr. Debbie's group, we have Anita Payne. Anita is also representing TNGS, and Fayette County, Tennessee Family History Group. And we have Angela Allen from Texas. She is representing AAGHSC Chicago, the Black and Gold. And Judy, how are you? Nice to have you.
Judy.
Judy from Effingham. I love Effingham. Man, if you went to Effingham High, like that is really cool. Effingham County Genealogical and Historical Society. And we have Jean. Yes, Jean is representing, she's not shy today, from Collegeville, PA. We have AAGG, AAHGS, Family Quest, AAHGS, GRVA, South Carolina Historical Society. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your genealogy groups. Genealogy groups, if you're not in a genealogy group, you're not doing genealogy. I'm just telling you. And also you get to know when like the newest stuff happens, when new records come out. Don't you guys agree that genealogy groups are important?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Michael, which genealogy groups are you in or were in? Like, what were your main deals?
Oh, I was in the local county one. I'm in the Illinois State one, Ohio State, Pennsylvania. Unless I forgot to renew, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I saw some renewal things come up for me as well. Did you ever run a genealogy group, Michael?
No, because I had this thing called a full-time job, and I didn't need any additional. Especially when the kids were little, I didn't need any additional challenges, shall we say.
Yes, Jim did. Jim, did you run any other groups besides the Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania?
Holy moly! Trying to get those cats herded twice. I did that and survived to tell the tale. That was enough. But.
Oh, you herded cats and survived to tell the tale.
That's why I said kinda.
Kinda, yeah.
All right, let's get to our not kinda quick start, but a full-blown quick start. Church membership has its privileges. So what's this all about, guys?
Well, before we get to exactly what it's all about, I just want to give a couple of hat tips. First of all, Dr. Debbie Abbott, she, as far as churches, she's doing a church history of her congregation and gave a lecture last year that was like my model for the church 200th church history that I want to do in a few years of my own congregation. And secondly, Sonny Morton, who's currently doing Institute courses on church records. And, both of them have really informed. But I thought I went into all that knowing a lot about church records, and I came out knowing a heck of a lot more. So.
That's fabulous. And Sonny, did you mention Sonny's book on church records?
Yeah. Oh, that's the definitive article. Yeah.
Most definitely. So thank you for that. We have to remember to do that more because I'm always like rushing through to get to the quick start. So now tell us what this quick start is all about. Church membership has its privileges.
Well, I'll just say another hat tip. This comes ripped off from a genealogy tip of the day that Michael did that really inspired me. I'll let him take it from there. So
I'm trying to remember what specific tip that was.
The importance of church membership. Yeah.
Keeping track. I think the tip I remember, if I'm remembering the right one, it was have a chronology of what denominations or congregations your ancestor was a member of. Sometimes we assume they were always members of the one true church or the one best congregation or whatever, but for a variety of reasons, life, mobility, dead pastors, whatever, might have caused them to change what congregation or denomination they were a member of. And some people are more inclined to do that than others. So make sure you have a chronology, of where they were going if you know, because there may be other records, other churches besides the one where there are some records of them that could be helpful to your research.
Yep.
Fantastic. So you guys ready to get started with this quick start? Fantastic. Let us get going with church membership has its privileges. So step one is to choose an ancestral family. Are different time periods better than others? Are we talking about like 1700s? Doesn't matter. Like, I know I can't go to the church and get my stuff, like my baptism. Like,
church registers are relevant to any time period. They're usually more vital. There's another little bit of a joke. Before
that was pretty good.
Before civil vital records come into play, but really they can have extra details of a baptism may give extra details that a baptismal or that a birth certificate doesn't have. A church marriage may give more details than a marriage license captures. So they're relevant to all time periods, and it does vary by denomination what sort of blackout periods there might be.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that not every church keeps the exact same quantity or detail in their records. Typically, ones that practice infant baptism tend to be more detailed and have more content to their records than ones that do not. That's just a kind of a broad generalization. Of course, the earlier you get, the fewer records there are. The main thing to remember is, as we're going to talk about in the examples, access everything. Whether it's a Baptist church that keeps very few records, you still may find some things that are helpful. They may indicate somebody got kicked out and here's the reason. That might be better than a birthday, because we can usually approximate a year of birth, but those good reasons why they got kicked out of church, that's gold right there. So
Hey,
it's all about perspective.
Speak for your own ancestors, Mike.
I love how you said that, because we have a lot more records indexed and are online, I found a lot of African Americans in white, like baptisms and stuff like that, in white churches that I would have never thought of, but it was happening at the church where the people they worked for attended that church. So I found that was interesting. All right, so choose a family. It doesn't matter the time period. It's just really about the availability and
we say family as opposed to just a particular ancestor, because it's going to be somewhat rare that you'll capture every baptism, every church record that should be there related to a family, especially as you go back in time. So if you're doing the whole family unit, that's going to give you more things to fill in.
Yep, yeah. I love it.
Last thing we want to mention before we go to step 2, church records are private records, not necessarily public. They don't have to allow you to see. That's just the heart. They're not civil records.
Why do you have to bring my heartbreak back? Like I tried to forget and suppress that trauma.
Well, at your peril, you do that. He's just saying tread lightly. You don't come in like gangbusters and think you're entitled to it, because inevitably the church register that you need the most is going to be in the hand of one of the most obstreperous church ladies who
or men.
Or it doesn't.
They're 90% ladies. I'm just saying it. Right then and there.
In some Catholic churches, some priests are very cautious about giving access to records, and because they see the records as created in the context of doing the service of the church,
and for
those purposes, not for our purposes. So it's like, I think one of you said, you've really got to tread lightly. And if you're unhappy about it, in the car on the way home is where you vent, not in the
Oh, I
church
shouldn't be venting
sanctuary.
right
That
now.
is not
You
the
mean I
place to
shouldn't
do
vent
that.
right now?
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Look, it's not a good idea to like put it out on display if you don't want people to want to look in it. Would you agree? All right, I'm moving on. I'm not. You guys are helping me out. See, this is friends. How many of us have them? All right, step 2. Create a chronology timeline showing the gap. So, what are we talking about here?
Well, we're presumably this is a family you know something about already, and you may know some birth dates and death dates from tombstones. You may have a civil marriage license depending on the time period. You may have their land transactions. So I'm saying put together the full chronology and then start putting in any church records that you already have, and then I'm kind of stepping on the third step a little bit
Don't
too.
step on the third step.
But well, I'm going to then start filling in with church records, based on what logically there would be, and especially when we'll save it for third step. So, Michael, you go.
Judy, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you're looking at that chronology, think about when they would be involved in various church acts, like, when they're going to be having their first communion, when they're going to be confirmed, when they'll be baptized. And some of these things will depend upon the denomination. Likely to get married, appear in different church registers at different stages of their life, if you will.
Yep.
You look at those blanks in the chronology.
Yep.
Judy brought up another nightmare. Thank you, Judy. This will be the nightmare quick start for me. Some were, she's talking about church records. Some were taken home by the church secretary for safe keeping, never to surface again. I think this is like the story of so many church records, often these modern ones that we're looking for. So yeah, sadness. All right. So I love your idea of capturing these gaps so you know where you could possibly fill in, as well as putting the milestones in there, Michael, based off of like the denomination, how they run things. All right. Step 3 that you were stepping on. I'm going to bring up step 3 is to add church and non-church records to the chronology. This is the gap chronology that we were just talking about.
Yeah, fill in the gaps, and yeah.
Okay. So you stepped on in step 4.
Yeah, I was about to step on step 4 because this one's important, and Michael's going to have some very good examples of these. I mean, as he's already said, those that practice infant baptism often have the best overall registers, but it's not just the baptisms that you should be looking at. You should be looking at, do they have confirmation records that have survived? Do they have Holy Communion records that have survived, that are almost like a membership list for those times? Do they have disciplinary or penances or things like that? And those those a lot of times aren't going to be online. You're going to have to go deal with those church ladies or church men.
Churchmen, yeah, throw them churchmen in there.
I mean, they may even have records of who made what donations, especially at
Yes.
certain holidays. So
Yes.
you might find out how frugal or how whatever your great grandmother was in terms of what she gave to the church.
Or for building a new building, or building an annex, or building a steeple. Those were times, or funding a big pulpit Bible. Those are some popular ones where they had a kind of a separate fund. And
burning the mortgage and buying choir robes. Let's not forget that. All right, step 5, we got to get to the record. Search beyond the neighborhood church. I love that step. You guys ready to see some examples?
I think so.
Okay, I think this is one. For some reason, it looks like Jesse's. Nope, this is yours.
No, this is mine. This is a baptism from 1915. There were actually 3 children baptized the same day. I cut off my uncle, I guess, when I sent you the info. This was one for whatever reason this was a church that practiced infant baptism, but for whatever reason with these 3 kids, they waited till they were a little older. There was always a pastor there. It was not one of those situations. I'm not sure if they had a falling out with somebody or just whatever happened, but they were older. And I remember my grandmother telling me she remembered her baptism, and I kind of rolled my eyes at the time. But then when I found it, she was 5, so she would have easily, especially since she and her sister and her brother all at the same time, she would have easily have remembered it. When this confirmed their birth date, their birthplaces. It told me where the parents were living at the time of the baptism. So if I didn't have those things, they would have all been in there.
All right.
This is an example. This is from the same church, 1868. A list of those who were confirmed. I think it was on Palm Sunday, if I'm reading that correctly. It doesn't have I've seen others that will have a lot more detail. This just has the names. I've seen some where it will list where they were born, where they were baptized, and that information just kind of depends upon how particular the pastor or priest was in terms of what information he wanted in the record. This one was pretty minimal, but it did give me names and the date of the event, which would give me a rough approximate age for these people in 1868.
Yeah.
And sometimes people get sad. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's not uncommon for confirmation records to have the age in years. As Michael says, you can estimate it from, usually it happens age 13 or 14 in a lot of denominations. But a lot of times it has age in years and the father's name, who they are, the son or daughter of.
Okay.
This is a communion register, I think, from the same year. And what if I hadn't known? You see the couple 18 and 19 there. If I hadn't known Michael was married in 1868, I would have seen Michael Troutvetter und Frau. Of course, he didn't list her name, just and wife. But if I didn't know he had a wife at that point in time, I would have known that right here from this entry in the communion register from the same church in 1868. So that would have been a clue. This is another really cool record. This is a family register. Jim mentioned getting beyond the typical birth, marriage, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. This is a family register. This church was not founded until 1881, but this couple went there. Some of the kids were confirmed there, but they were all baptized somewhere else.
Tell us what they were. Wait.
It's the name. It's the name. It's the baptism. First, it's the number. Then it's the name. It's the baptism, birth, and when and where baptized for some of them, confirmation, and then marriage, and then death at the end of the.
Oh wow!
The first two that you see here. This is the husband and the wife, the parents. So I've got her maiden name. I've got their dates of birth, birthplaces in Germany. Baptized where, but didn't have a date. When they were year of confirmation, gives their marriage date and place and where. And then if we go to the next
Michael,
slide,
where did you get this record?
Okay, this was online at Ancestry because when years ago, a lot of in some of these denominations, some of these Lutheran denominations, they microfilmed the entire set of church records, everything.
So the church set this index up. This wasn't like something.
Right.
This is so cool.
There were several pages in the register. Yeah,
it's fairly common for German ethnic denominations.
Yeah, I mean pastor was wanting to make sure they'd all been baptized and confirmed and everything else. And
I love it.
This was really cool because these are their 3 oldest children. Global great grandma there is number 5, but it's got their date and place of birth. And the family, once they married, they stayed in this same town, but there was no Lutheran church there. And they were not inclined to do anything at a Methodist or Presbyterian because, well, And so they went to other nearby Lutheran churches to have the children baptized. And so it's got their birth dates in the 3rd column there. and where they were born. And then the fourth column has their, I think that, yeah, that's their baptismal information there in the fourth. No, confirmation and baptism. Confirmation and baptism. So it told me what nearby churches all the children were baptized at. In the one there,
so cool.
It just lists for number 5, Anna Margarita. It's got when she was 1861 November, baptized by the name of the pastor. I had to figure out where he was at in November of 1861. But some of them it does give. It's kind of hard to read in this image. It does give the town of the church where they had taken the children to be baptized.
Tim is like, settle down. This is normal German fare.
Some have it, some don't. It just a lot of it depends on the pastor and how obsessive he was about these details. But here it is for the rest of the kids. They didn't always go to the same church. They went to different churches to have them baptized. But here it was in this record. But these all took place, except for maybe all the baptisms took place at different churches. The confirmations did not, but the baptisms all did. But in 2 or 3 different counties, they had these kids baptized. It wasn't all even. They went a distance to have some of them baptized.
Very cool. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
That's not me messing that up.
Yeah, this is dealing with our 5th step about going beyond the neighborhood church and just demonstrating that, especially 1700s and 1800s, with pastors writing circuits and so forth, you need to check out a lot of different records. This green dot is where I live in Berks County. There is a church where 3 of my direct line ancestors are buried just a mile away. That's my starting point, the closest one. But then when we go on to step 2, we see that it's a union church. That, in other words, there were not just the Reformed of the time, but also Lutherans, separate sets of records. And no matter what sort of, how committed they were to one confession or the other, you're going to find some in both books. Then the next step is similar names. And the point of this is that church I'm talking about, my church, is Bern Church. It's in Bern Township today, but historically Bern Township was everything inside that gold outline. And there were at least 6 Reformed churches in Bern that when somebody talks about the church in Bern, it might not just be Bern Church, but one of these others. Step 4 then relates to not only do you go a radius of 5 miles out, you may have to go 15 miles out. You may have to go into adjoining counties, again, because of these pastors writing circuits, again, because of, there not being a pastor locally. So you have to go for where there is a pastor to get married or have a child baptized. And then on the step 5, you've got the parishes or charges that share a pastor, which might be different, might go outside those concentric circles that you're searching. And the records of your ancestor could be with any of the other congregations in that parish or charge. Because generally, I think these pastor saddlebags, they would, write a baptism down on a scrap of paper. And then when they got to a destination somewhere, they might write it in a register book, and it might not be the right register. So then we go on to the last one that just shows the second last one, that also, in addition to congregational registers, you should be looking for private pastoral registers that the pastors kept, but didn't enter the same acts into congregational records. And then we go the final thing where we bring it all together and show all the different congregations and private pastoral registers that you should be checking out to do that. What do we call that in the GPS? Reasonably exhaustive search.
Reasonably exhaustive search. I love your maps. These are super cool, Jim.
Why, thank you.
You are the map man, and you are extremely funny as well. Let's run through those steps. 4, church membership has its privileges. Step 1, choose an ancestral family. Step 2, create a chronology timeline showing the gaps in your research. Step 3, add church and non-church records to the chronology. Step 4, research beyond the most commonly used church records. And then step 5, search beyond the neighborhood church. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. All right. We got to get our next guest on here. I'm so excited. Hold on one second. I'm so excited. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. All right. I am so excited to bring on someone who I'm just so grateful. You know, you as genealogists, we meet people who are doing things that help to make our lives easier. And I am going to bring on a person who is doing just that. So where is he? Here he is, Dr. Jesse Bayker from Rutgers University in Camden. Hi, Dr. Jesse. How are you?
Hi, Shamil. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. If you could decrease your headroom just a tad. And so one thing that I normally ask our genealogists is to share their origin story, how they got started, and how they knew that when they knew they were hooked. With you, I'd like to know that about history, or like this database that you're working on. When did you get started and get the bug of doing history? And when did you know that you just gone over the line like that? There's no turning back. You're all the way in.
I knew that I really was hooked on history when I was an undergraduate at Brooklyn College in New York. And I really got hooked on, actually, my first history teacher who made me go to a cemetery and pick out graves and then try to research them using genealogical resources to see if I could trace those families. And that kind of research really hooked me. So it was, from the beginning, actually had a little bit of a genealogical bent. But then how I really got into doing the work that I'm doing now in New Jersey is when I was getting my PhD at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. I worked on this project called Scarlet and Black, which was all about the institution itself, the university, and the university's history with slavery. And doing that work, one of the things that I realized was that we at the university had a lot of records about slavery in Middlesex County, New Jersey. Because we were the custodian for a lot of those county records that have to do with gradual abolition that we're going to be talking about today. And those records, you know, I just felt like we have to put that out there. It can't just be here in the archive, in the basement. We have to put it out there so more people can find it. And that's how I really got started on that project that I'm doing now.
And I'm so glad you did, Jesse. I'm so glad you did. So let's go ahead and jump on in there. With your quick start. I love the title called The Records That Gradual Abolition Created. Can you tell us like a little snippet on, you know, why this title?
Yes. Well, you know, when we're talking about gradual abolition, we're talking about the process in the northern states of the United States where, you know, a lot of times people kind of forget that slavery wasn't just a Southern issue. And way before the Civil War, right, there had to be a process where those states, where all of them in the North had slavery earlier on in history, and then how did they get rid of that institution, what that process was like, what kind of records it generated for genealogists, for people who are looking for their family, what kind of documentation really shows us how people went from being enslaved to being free.
Fantastic. So let's jump right on in there. So we have step one is to learn about the laws. Yes, this, we hear this all the time, but it's not easy. How can you suggest any tips on how we can do that?
Well, so when we're talking about learning about the laws, you're going to want to look at whatever state that you're researching. All the states had different laws and they were adopted at different times, starting from 1780, with Pennsylvania being the first state that said we're going to institute gradual abolition process, to the last state being New Jersey in 1804. So if you're looking at the states in the north, you want to identify where, if you're looking in Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, what year was the gradual abolition law adopted in your state, and then try to look into, what did the law say that could help you. It can help you both know what was the experience of the individuals that were caught up in that system, but also the law is going to tell you what kind of records had to be produced as a requirement of the law and where you can go and look for those records.
Fantastic. So let's move on to step two, which is to learn about the types of records available. And that's what you're going to help us with today. What are the different types of records that are available?
So there's a whole actually range of different records that came out of that legislation that instituted gradual abolition. But the most kind of basic first one is birth certificates for Black children, the children of enslaved mothers. And the reason that those birth certificates were being created was because the way that the gradual abolition process worked is the gradual abolition laws said that if a child was born to an enslaved mother, then when that child got to be a certain age, that's when they would become free. That's what made it gradual abolition, right? They weren't just born free and right away free. So, for example, in New Jersey, if you are born after July 4th, 1804, and your mother is an enslaved woman, then if you're a girl, you're going to become free when you're 21, and you're a boy, you're going to become free when you're 25. You're enslaved until then. But how are you going to know the day when you're supposed to be free? Right, so you're going to get the birth certificates coming from that. Then there's also, in many of the states that had gradual abolition, there was a abandonment system. That was
abandonment.
Abandonment. So, and I'll show you some of the records related to that. But the abandonment system, it said that if a child was born into slavery after this law was adopted, and the enslaver did not actually want that child in their house because they did not want to provide for that child and raise them and provide, food and shelter and clothing for them, because they feel like, well, if this girl is going to become free when she's 21, I don't want to have this child here and then not have them be enslaved for life. So I want to just give up my right to enslave this person and take this child out of my house. So they were in a lot of the states that had the gradual abolition, like in New Jersey, when the baby was 1 year old, that enslaver could take that baby away from the mother and take him to the town overseer of the poor. And that child would be treated as a pauper and bound out to service to some other family. So there'll be records related to that are created by gradual abolition.
That so sucks, Dr. Jesse. Like, this is the thing that really upset me when I was looking at these records and learning about the laws, that they could basically take people's children, put them in the system, and then when they got of age, they could bind them out as servants. It's disgusting. And I just need to say that, because it's absolutely, I can't just gloss over that, how disgusting it is to see the ways that people were trying to skirt the law and continuing to break up families. Like, imagine you just had a child, this child is going to be free at some time. They're not an enslaved person, but now they are with the county. I mean, it's sad. But so let's move on to, we're going to show some of these records because I'm sure you could talk about there's a lot of them. But step 3 would be then to place locations geographically in the time period. So can you elaborate on that just a little?
Yeah. So, the records in places like New Jersey that are related to gradual abolition are usually going to be local, kept by the county clerk or kept by the township, depending on the kind of record that it is. So it's really actually important to know what was the county or the township at the time, because in New Jersey, for example, we have a history of breaking up our counties and reconfiguring them and reconfiguring a lot of towns that broke up into, in the modern day, it may that when you go to the municipal archive of your town and you're looking for something, you might realize, oh, it's not here, because you actually have to know what was the town 200 years ago when this gradual abolition process was happening. So that's what I mean by placing and figure out in the past what was the county and the township.
And we're very lucky in New Jersey. Someone has done an amazing job of, I can't remember, it's like county boundaries. But it's not just county, it's like the jurisdictions. Just Google, like, I'll try to find it for you, and put it on our Facebook page, but you can go through this and see exactly what your town was going back to the beginning. So let's move on because we have so many documents. Step 4 is then to use slavery databases to locate sources. So you're going to tell us some of those. I have some links. I'm going to pop them into the chat so people could check them out. And then step 5 is to research, analyze, and share. Let's show what you have here. So what do we have here?
So this is the Act for the Gradual Abolition of Slavery from New Jersey. This was adopted in 1804. So this is the type of law. This is actually an image from the Library of Congress of the original law as it was printed and circulated. And this has all the text that tells you what the rules were in New Jersey with the child being 21 or 25 years old before they can be free. And by the way, the thing about gradual abolition in New Jersey and other states that had similar laws is that when the law was adopted, nobody actually got free at that moment when the law was passed. So nobody becomes free in 1804. And all of the people who were enslaved at the time when this law was passed are still going to, for the rest of their lives.
For the rest of their life. Like, I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, they kept changing the law, but the people who were originally enslaved, the oldest people, were enslaved basically for the rest of their lives. They never let them out of enslavement. So thank you for saying that. Don't give me, you put me on my soapbox too much today. All right. Oh, this is a good book here.
Yes. So if you want to learn about gradual abolition laws, the legislation, how it worked, all the process, the road to it, recommend this book to you, The Ragged Road to Abolition, Slavery and Freedom in New Jersey by James Gigantino. There's also a great article by Gary Wolonetz.
Sorry, I'm going to put that in the chat.
Yes, New Jersey Slavery and the Law. And in the chat, you could also put, I had sent, I think, to you, there's a great bibliography of all the laws in New Jersey related to slavery and to gradual abolition that Rutgers Rutgers New York Law Library has all of the text, digital bibliography for you.
Fantastic.
So, as I said, the records, right, the law says what kind of records have to be created and how they are to be kept. So what we're looking at here is a birth certificate. And as you see, this is not really, it's not a form right? There's not a form that somebody fills out. This is just the enslaver literally taking a piece of paper and writing out, I certify that this girl, Patty, was born on the 11th of March in 1806. And this is what they had to do. The enslaver would have to send this to the county clerk, and the county clerk had to keep this piece of paper and to record it into a book. This was required by law. So this is how we have this situation, actually, where this is at a time where New Jersey and the other northern states, white children, or for that matter, black children who are born free, they don't have birth certificates, right? We just talked about, I just heard you talk about churches. A lot of the time, those records are going to be kept by churches or your family Bible, but you don't have a government record, except if this is a black child and their mother is enslaved, then it actually has to be filed with the county clerk. So these are the earliest birth certificates for anybody that we have in the state of New Jersey.
Love that.
Yeah, so you see, this is you're looking for things that say Patty was born, and usually they'll have the mother's name. Most of the time will be written down, and most of the time they did not write down the father's name, very rarely. But on this certificate, we actually see that Betty and Caesar were the parents of Patty.
Oh, cool.
It's really
because they didn't respect them as human beings, so of course they didn't respect the father of the child.
Yes, yes. So this is another type of record that emerged in New Jersey at the time of gradual abolition. So this is a removal certificate. So what is removal? At the time of gradual abolition, there were laws that were also adopted to make it more difficult for Black people from New Jersey to be taken away from the state, to be sold out of state, because they were trying to stop the slave trade too, right? Not having people be imported into New Jersey, brought over on ships from Africa, but also they understand, the legislators, now that you're saying that these people are going to become free, some people are going to say, oh, well, I want to take them away from New Jersey, and how do you prevent that? And so there was a law that said that an enslaved person had to go be in front of two judges, and they would be questioned separately from the enslaver privately, and they would ask them, are you willing to go? This person wants to take you out of New Jersey and take you to Louisiana, take you to Mississippi, take you to Alabama. Are you going to go? Are you freely consenting to go?
Okay. And so this sounds like court records.
Yes. So these will be court records kept by the county clerk. They were often, very often, this particular record, for example, is mixed in actually with manumission records. So you think you're looking at manumissions and the records that are talking about people getting free, and somewhere in between there, you might see these records that are not manumissions at all. They're a record of removal. And you see here, it says Sarah Ann, and she consents, right? They write down that she said, yes, okay, I will leave. We'll go to Mississippi. Now, this young woman, Sarah Ann, she is 21 years old at this time when this is happening in 1818. So she is one of these young women who was born a couple of years before gradual abolition started. And
so she's a slave for life.
She's a slave for life, and they're taking her away. But guess what? She's 21 years old. If she stayed in New Jersey and had a baby in New Jersey, her children would be free. But now they want to take her to Mississippi.
And her children are not going to be free.
And her grandchildren, okay, 2 more generations, are going to be enslaved through that process. So we have a lot of evidence that some of these records were being falsified. People didn't really consent. Because how do you ask a person who is enslaved, well, do you freely
say no to them?
Right.
That's feeding you and clothing you.
Yes. So these are some of the records that we have here in New Jersey. And I had mentioned before the abandonment system. So this is an example of an abandonment certificate. This man, Richard Holtham, is writing out the certificate saying that he is giving up a girl named Kate, who was born to her mother is Jane. So it provides a little bit of information about when the baby was born. And he says here, I do abandon all my right and title to the service of said child. So these kind of records would be kept by the township, not at the county level. The other ones we were looking at are at the county level. So this would be by the township, because this document has to go to the overseer of the poor, who's in charge of the paupers in the in that town, and that's the person that's going to be in charge of receiving this record and keeping these records in the municipal records.
So like the municipal records are like hit or miss. Like a lot of municipal records are just not available. But you did say that those records, the abandonment records, would have to go to the overseer of the poor. So that means it would be at the county level as well, or is the overseer a township level person?
An overseer of the poor is usually a township level official. So for the townships, that most townships had one in the early 19th century, and so you kind of just have to figure out where the records for that overseer of the poor are ended up, right? Sometimes they're at your municipal archives still. Sometimes they have actually been sent to the county. Or even a few of them made their way to the New Jersey State Archives in Trenton.
Yes, they do have some municipal online, so that's kind of cool. But that doesn't help me because my towns aren't in there. All right. One day my town will be in there.
Yes. So you see here a detail where he says, I do abandon my right and title. And so from these records, if you want to go to the next image, also the other thing that was happening was these overseers of the poor, once they had several children in their care, they started publishing these advertisements. This is from 1809. And it's basically saying that anybody from the town who wants to come and take one of these children to be their servant until the age of 21 or 25, if it's a boy, 25 years old, they're advertising them in the local newspaper. So you might come across in the papers as well mentions of abandoned Black children.
Abandoned
by their mom, right? They're abandoned by
the enslaver.
Yes, that's what this means.
It's so disgusting, Jesse. I can't believe here's our book. I was talking about this is gold.
Yes, John Snyder's. So this is for our next step, right? So figuring out what the locations geographically are. And actually this ad we were just looking at, it says Maidenhead in Hunterdon County. But if you look at this book and figure out things out, it's actually now in Mercer County, and it's called Lawrence, right? So this book is going to help you out with trying to figure out what the evolution of those boundaries was over time.
Gold, John Snyder. Let's have a moment of silence for John Snyder and the team who helped him do this, because this is Jersey gold. It is online. Just Google it.
Yes. Yes, and these are some of the maps inside that really give you detail how the counties evolve, and he has those maps for individual counties and townships, and all of the different municipalities as well.
And as much as I love maps, this is the semi-gold. The gold are like the list. I don't know if you have that, but he has a nice list of each township and what it used to be. What is this?
Yeah, so speaking of maps, I wanted to show, we're at the New Jersey Slavery Records Project, really trying to work out geographically where different events took place and using the resources from Snyder. So if you are looking for stuff in New Jersey and you go to our website, you could click on the map, you will be able to see dots throughout the state. As you see, South Jersey is.
Did you just say throughout the state? So what are these dots?
So these dots are different types of events and records that took place in different places. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that you can actually select one of them on the left side. So let's say you're interested specifically in freedom seeking, right? Or maybe you want the birth records, manumissions, but this is here, the red dots are the freedom seeking. That's all the people that ran away. They're trying to get away from slavery, right? They're trying to get away. And so once you click that, it will show you just those specific kinds of events. And then you can zoom in. If you see on the next slide, you can get closer and you'll start seeing names, different labels. And if you click on one of those dots, let's say here you clicked on Burlington, you can actually see specific information about what happened there, on what date exactly. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see this little box that pops up is
Magdalene, go, Magdalene, go. All right, sorry,
yeah.
I had to give her some love.
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
yes.
here we go.
So if you scroll down, this little box has a lot more information in it. You got to scroll through and you can see the transcript of the document, all the information about this situation that happened, and we're also telling you where it happened in Burlington, right?
Go Jermaine and Madeline, the Magdalene, they are on the move. Okay.
Yes.
Love
And
this.
I just want to draw your attention also to see here, it actually says 8 of 8. So there's 8 records. There might be more records for.
Wait a minute. Did you say there are records behind this text and this stuff?
Yes, there's more. So if you were to click on in the upper corner there, where it says 8, you'll see all the other people who ran away from Burlington or to Burlington. And then where it says link to event record and source, right? If you click that, that will take you to our website where you can actually see the document itself and more information about this situation and the people that are involved.
This is absolutely the best. This is absolutely the best.
So this is where you would end up if you clicked on one of the links on the map, right? So this is the New Jersey slavery record. So we're getting into our next step, using slavery databases to locate sources. So I wanted to highlight, of course, the New Jersey slavery records that I work on, a couple of other databases that will be useful for people. One is called NESRI. That's the Northeast Slavery Records Index. So just search for NESRI or Northeast Slavery Records Index. That's a collaborative database that we contribute to, and other projects throughout the Northeast contribute to, where you can search for, it's an index, so you're not going to see the actual document, but it will tell you where to find something for your town or something by name. You can search where you can go and get those documents. And of course, also enslaved.org. I also love to plug always for slavery records. This is an international database that we're also getting ready to submit our records to that. So you can find people from all over the place based on names and places, and kind of get into it that way. So on njslavery.org on our website, this is just showing you a little bit of a preview of how you might search for records, right? If you go to the database tab and you go by to events, you can type in names, look by locations, but also event types, right? So if you're looking for a particular kind of information, you want to know, okay, this abandonment system that we're talking about, I want to see some information about that. I'm interested in that kind of situation. I want to see what does an abandonment record look like? What does a manumission record look like? So you would choose a specific event type in the facets that are on the left side of the screen there, and you could then get the records that describe those kinds of events, and you could explore what does the language of those records look like, right? Look at some transcripts, look at some pictures, so you can start to get an understanding of what those kind of records
this is amazing, amazing, amazing. Hold on, let me just make sure that everyone grabs that QR code. Please take a look at this database. But I want to just go back here because I find this so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not for nothing, I'm like a South Jersey girl, and it kind of hurts my heart to like see this blank area. And so I know that I have promised you that, this isn't going to stay like this, right?
Yeah.
I promised you that. And so did some other lady that I brought on here today, just to tell you that Dr. Jessie, me and Linda Lotz and Jane Stokes are so grateful that you are ready to take we have at least 200 manumissions for South Jersey. Linda, you have Salem County
Mhm.
manumissions for South
Right.
Jersey. How many do we have for Salem?
We have 39. That includes 2 young children where the mother was released from slavery and they said just take the children. So they're not treated in quite the same way. But that works out to be 19 men and 22 women. And there were about 12 who were under the age of 10 who were then held until they were 21 or something like that.
So we have to get off of here, but Dr. Jesse, you will be getting those manumission documents and the tables this week. And so thank you for giving us a place to put those. Linda is a friend, and we are partners along with Jane Stokes, who's not here with us. We are collecting manumissions for South Jersey, whether they are Quakers or not, and turning them over to Dr. Jesse. Let me run through these steps. Linda, thank you for coming. These steps for the records that Gradual Abolition created. Step 1, learn about the laws. Step 2, learn about the types of records available. Step 3, place locations geographically in the time period. Step 4, use slavery databases to locate sources. Step 5, our normal, always research, analyze, and share. Let me bring everyone who's still here. Here he is back. And thank you so much for joining us. Where's my music?